thank you so much for taking some time out to just share a little bit more about your journey and yourself and bits and pieces like that. So I wanted to start with asking you about just your coming into the Mitchell family. You've been here for about 6 weeks, I think it was? Or
yeah, thereabouts, yep.
So tell me, what are some of the things that you like about Mitcham? But also, I'd love to know, what is something about Mitcham that has come to you as a bit of a culture shock? Or, wow, this is done differently, or, oh my goodness, look what I'm in for. So, something interesting that's different about a switch from, WA to Victoria.
Yeah, sure. So the couple of things that come to mind about what we've really appreciated and enjoyed so far about joining with the Mitcham family is the incredible sense of hospitality and generosity that this church has. Even talking with other pastors around Melbourne already, when they hear that I'm at Mitcham, they always respond with, Mitcham, good people. They will love you to death there. And that's certainly been our experience. We have felt so welcomed. The place, the people have been so inviting, so warm, so encouraging and friendly, and incredibly generous toward us as well. I've said it before, but this has been the softest landing we've ever experienced in a church. It has just been absolutely wonderful. Not just for me, but for Sarah and for Evie and Oscar as well. All four of us have been made to feel like we're part of the family. And that's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. I think one of the things that is a change for me, if I could put it that way, from my previous church context in WA, is the number of seniors we have in our church. And that's not that it's disproportionate. It's just in Karratha, where we were the last 6 years. Karratha is a very young town, and there are just simply no older folk in the whole of Karratha, let alone in our church. We had one person, I think, in our church over the age of 70 in this whole 6 years we were there. A few in the age of kind of 60 to 70, but really not many. And so for me, coming into a church community that has a very strong seniors cohort and a very active seniors cohort as well, I'm actually really excited about that. I'm really looking forward to being back in a church context that really is spanning the number of generations that we have. It's a good thing.
Yeah, and the other thing that at least for a lot of us here at Mitcham we've noticed in the last few years is a big growth in the number of young families. Lots of kids between sort of, birth and sort of 3 or 4 year old. Is that something that was a rich part of your church life in Karratha as well? Is that something you experienced here?
Yeah, it really was. Karratha, as I said, is a very young town. It's a town of about 20,000 people, and there's 8 primary schools within that 20,000. So it kind of just goes to show the demographics. 8 primary schools, 2 high schools. And so, yeah, our church in Karratha was filled with young families, a number of young marrieds, young singles, and also primary school age kids were always a regular cohort. We had a junior youth group program that we ran for years 4, 5 and 6. And that was always a big night, 40 plus kids coming along from time to time. And just a number of kids from our community as well engaging with us. So, yeah, certainly engaged with young families regularly and really enjoyed doing so.
So, one thing we would love to do in this video is maybe just look under the rug a little bit more about Nick.
Yep.
So we learned probably a little bit about you as part of your onboarding, just with the meetings we had with the church members, about your kind of your background, upbringing. What I'd love to know is what Nick Martin was like growing up that wasn't in the job application or the cover letter or the interview as such. What was it like growing up and family and hobbies and mischief and that sort of stuff?
Oh, the Nick Martin growing up was an angel. No, nothing under the carpet at all. I grew up in a family of a mum and dad and 2 brothers. I'm the middle of 3 boys. And I've got a mum and dad who have just recently celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary only a couple of months ago. And so grew up in a very strong family environment, a wonderful family environment. and a family environment that afforded us plenty of opportunities to be boys and to grow in our experiences of life and everything associated. I think it's fair to say I was probably the most expensive of the three boys for my parents. I played a lot of sport, had a lot of music lessons growing up, and probably more so than what my brothers did. And being the middle child, I probably struggled with middle child syndrome and feeling like I was the one that was invisible, but in reality, that certainly wasn't the case as I look back on it. Just had a wonderful family upbringing. Didn't really get into a lot of mischief. I think I was the kind of kid who was a bit too scared to get in trouble. And so really would try to avoid doing too much that would be too far outside the boundaries. Naturally would push those boundaries from time to time, as every kid does, every teenager does. But really had a wonderful upbringing, a stable family life, and it's still very connected to my family as well.
Cool. Now, some point in that period of growing up and journeying, you've had a real genuine encounter with God.
Yep.
Do you want to share a little bit about that in your own sort of conversion or your own story?
Yeah, sure. So growing up, church, God, faith was not a part of our lives. We didn't go to church. So Christianity was really something that was never even discussed at home. We went to a Christian high school. Mum and Dad sent us boys to the school for the education, the quality of education, as opposed to the local public school. And really it was in this process of teenage angst and trying to understand life and make sense of it all that ultimately led me to an awareness of and therefore a faith in Jesus. It got to a point where I just felt like there had to be more to life than eating, sleeping, school, weekends, sport, rinse and repeat week in, week out. And over a period of probably 9 months, began to question what that meant. My particular cohort at school, my mates it's a strong Christian cohort. Guys I'm still friends with 20-something years later after school graduated. They're still followers of Jesus and involved in church lives themselves. They really were praying for me, first and foremost. They could see the struggle, and so they were praying for me. There were teachers at school praying for me. And at one point, as I was trying to understand what life was all about, I was suggested to ask God, is he real? And he'll tell you he is. And so I would do that each night on the end of my bed. I'd close my eyes and I'd pray, God, are you real? Nope, great, go to sleep. But something just kept prompting me to ask the question each night. One particular night, as I sat on the end of my bed, I closed my eyes to ask God that question, and I couldn't even get the words out before my room just filled with the presence of the Holy Spirit. There was an incredible awareness of peace and a sense of fullness, of completion, of wholeness, and just the presence of God overwhelmed me in that moment. And so I thought to myself, well, I think I now believe in God. I guess that makes me a Christian. What do Christians do? Oh, they read the Bible, that's right. So because I went to a Christian school, I had a Good News Bible. So I grabbed that. And as I grabbed my Bible, a thought entered my mind. I'm going to read the book of Ephesians. And then I captured myself and I thought, hang on a minute. I'm going to read what? I'd never heard of that word Ephesians in my life. But across my mind's eye, I could see how it was spelt. And so I opened up the table of contents and I looked through and I saw this word Ephesians written exactly as I had seen it. So I turned to it and began to read through the book of Ephesians, and it's just the most incredible story of coming from dark to light, from death to life. Paul writing, saying, you were once dead in your trespasses and sins, but now because of the grace of God, you've been made alive in Christ. You are co-heirs with Christ to the treasures of heaven. And as a 2-second-old Christian, reading this and having God speak to me about my identity in him, this is what I was, this is now who I am because of Jesus, was just powerful. It was formative, it was transformative, it was incredible. And so that moment really consolidated for me that God is real, that Jesus is who he said he is, and that Holy Spirit is alive and active and working in our lives each and every day when we do and don't even see it. So that was really, I guess, the crux of how I came to faith. From then, it was a matter of working it all out and daily figuring out what it means to follow Jesus, getting it horribly wrong many times and occasionally getting it somewhat right as well. And really over the next, it's been nearly 30 years now of trying to just work out what it looks like to follow Jesus in a day-to-day context.
Awesome. That's absolutely fantastic. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no worries.
Cool. I think probably the church knows quite a lot about a bit of your ministry background and, sort of ministry passions and things like that. I think for all of us, we'd love to maybe hear something about maybe your time at Karratha or even growing up. Something that is just sticks in your mind as just like, this was a hilarious moment as part of church life or family life. Have you got anything you can kind of claw out that's something memorable that, is just a little taste of the, chaos of Karratha or something?
Gosh, I've been racking my brain trying to think of something. There were a lot of funny moments. There were a lot of joyful experiences and a lot of incredible opportunities we had to see things and experience things that we never thought we would. Living in Karratha was never our plan. I hate the heat. I never wanted to be a solo pastor. And Perth is probably a bit too small for me. I love the hustle of big cities. And so we just combined all three of those things by moving to a country town in the middle of the northwest of WA. But the opportunities we had up there were just incredible. The being in creation was so much fun. The rugged beauty of the Northwest is just something that has captured our hearts. They say that the red dust of the Northwest stains everything, including your heart, and it does. It does. We just look back with incredibly fond memories of our time in Karratha. Punctuated with multiple hilarious moments, of course, none of which come to mind right now. Unfortunately, we try to make laughter a huge part of our family life. We see life as just ultimately fun, and it should be a brilliant experience. Yes, you have incredibly low lows and everything in between as well as with the high highs, but ultimately we have a hope beyond this life. We have a hope in Jesus, and so for us, one of the things we try to model and engage as a family is just a genuinely hope-filled, fun experience of life, to go on the adventures and see what happens. I think, look, one little thing that comes to mind, I suppose, is obviously travelling in the Northwest is fraught with danger. You're driving long distances, with sometimes no phone reception or anything like that. And I'm not mechanically minded. I wish I was, but I'm genuinely not. And there were 2 times when we broke down in the middle of nowhere, and we were far from civilization, far from any help. Thankfully, both times we were just within phone reception, and so I was able to call a mechanic friend of ours who would come and rescue us both times. But we were hours from home, hours and hours and hours away from really anywhere. And so sitting in that space of not being able to do anything, not knowing how to fix it. It was summertime, so we're talking sort of 45 degrees, humid. The first time we discovered later on that the extra water we'd packed, which we always did on extra trips, was leaking. And so we had very little of that left available to us. And so, little moments like that, little experiences like that, getting bogged on the beach, things like this, memories we look back on. And at the time were a bit challenging and concerning, but always underlining it all was that sense of, we're good, we're okay. The first breakdown I found incredibly stressful. But then the second one, because of the experience of the first one, and now our friend, our mechanic mate, very generously coming and rescuing us, I knew it would be fine. I knew it would be okay. As stressful as it was, as annoying as it was, as hard as it was sitting at the nearest roadhouse for 6 hours in 40 plus degrees, waiting for him to come and get down from Karratha to save us, we knew it was going to be okay. So yeah, lots of little stories. None that I can really think of now, unfortunately.
That's fine. It sounds like there was so much laughter and things happening every day that it's all just part of the normal life.
We tried to make it that way, and that's not to reduce the fact that there were some incredibly hard times as well. Karratha is a beautiful place, but it's incredibly isolated. And so there were times when it was extremely challenging. We probably had one of the toughest years of our life up in Karratha. Just being away from all of our regular support networks, access to mentors and support structures when we needed them. And so there were times when there wasn't a lot of laughter. There were probably a few more eggshells being walked on rather than, I don't know, soft pillows and fluffy clouds or whatever. So yeah, I think we certainly try to have a lot of laughter and fun, but reality is, that is balanced or tempered with some incredibly hard times that we've had to walk through and navigate as a family as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thanks for coming down to Mitcham and bringing that experience and resilience, and we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
So, I want to sort of change gears now.
Yep.
As I said before, Mitcham know a lot about your ministry background, even a little bit of your story now. But I think maybe people would love to know a little bit of the personal life of Nick Martin. So, could you tell for me maybe your top 3 hobbies or passions or pastimes, something that makes rounds out your kind of your personal time at home?
Yeah, sure. I love sport. I'm a big sports fan. So if there's a ball involved and it's being kicked, pushed, punched, rolled, thrown, whatever, chased, I am there. I love playing sport. Not so much these days, but I love watching sport. And so even getting down the local footy field to watch the local teams run around, whatever it might be. I'm a big Freo Dockers fan, long-suffering, patient fan of the Fremantle Football Club for many years now. Hopefully flag mantle is something we can all be talking about for many years to come, sooner rather than later. So I love my sport. I love barbecuing. So American barbecue, low and slow, smoking meat, brisket and ribs and pulled pork and chicken and those kinds of things. I'm a big believer in the old Simpsons quote that you don't win friends with salad. And so a plate full of protein is my ideal dinner, and breakfast and lunch as well. And so, yeah, smoking meat is just a fun pastime, a hobby. One of the first things I did when we moved to Melbourne was I went and bought myself 2 Webbers, because one is not enough. You need a couple of those so you can cook your sides and your meat at the same time. Very important. And then I love family time as well. I love just getting out and exploring where we live with my family. My wife is my best friend. My kids are just a joy. And so getting out and about and having new adventures, finding new places and gaining new experiences is just I think it's a hobby. It's a really fun pastime. Instead of just sitting at home, making the most of the time we've got to get out and about and explore where we live and love where we live, and really create those new memories with the family as well.
Fantastic. Well, I've got one last question for you. So you're here at Mitcham. Do you want to maybe just share with us for a moment where you are? So you're here, God's here, you're at Mitcham. What does the future look like for both Mitcham Baptist Church, but your role in God's bigger story here at Mitcham? What are you looking forward to and what are you expecting?
Oh, big question. Big question. The last month and a half of being here has really been about just trying to put the puzzle pieces into place so I can see what the picture is. What is Mitcham Baptist Church? Where are our strengths? Where are our opportunities for ministry? What do we do well? What do we don't do well? All of those kind of things. And there's been a lot of thoughts and a lot of ideas and vision running through my head, but I've really felt God just kind of going, just take your time. We're playing the long game here. You know, we don't want to be just a flash in the pan and we're shooting through in 5 minutes or anything like that. But we want to be here ultimately for as long as the Lord wants us here. We have always tried to live our life in obedience to God. We went to Karratha in obedience. We feel like we left in obedience. We feel like we've come here in obedience. And so we want to stay in obedience with the time frames that God has for us personally here at Mitcham. We're hoping that's certainly longer rather than shorter, that's for sure. But to just continue really to help build a church that lives in complete surrender to Jesus as Lord. To build a church that wants and is obedient to what and where God calls us. And to focus on the things he's calling us to focus on. To be people of mission, to join Jesus in day-to-day living out the gospel and inviting others to taste and see that the Lord is good. One of my passions is seeing people come alive in their faith and to actually live a way that takes risks in their faith. For me, faith is not a noun. It's not something we have. It's a verb. It's what we do. It's the way we live. And it's the choices we make every day to actually live that faith-filled life, that risky life before the Lord. To speak when he calls us to speak. To stay silent when he calls us to stay silent. To love the unlovable. To meet those in the margins and invite them into the family of God. And to be Christ in whatever capacity we can in our day-to-day to our neighbours, our colleagues, our family, our friends, our kids, our spouse, whoever it might be. To actually be a church that shapes ourselves on the life and ministry of Jesus and invites others to enjoy the goodness of God by coming and being part of the family of God. So what that looks like specifically, what that looks like practically, I don't know. That's something we'll have to work out together as we continue to walk this journey of following Jesus. But I'm really looking forward to the opportunities that the Lord will open up for us to find our unique place in the landscape of churches in Melbourne and to be and take on the shape that God is calling us to take on.
Fantastic. Nick, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.